Natalie, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to talk a little bit about your character first. So your character is the survivor of a school shooting. Your character is a celebrity, like a pop star. Your character is obviously troubled, is obviously dealing with addiction and just maybe dealing with PTSD. And now she's learning about a terrorist attack which may or may not have been inspired by her work. So right off the bat, what do you do as an actor to put yourself in that person?
Well, the writing was so strong. I really felt like I knew the character when I read it on the page. Because she is such a specific character. She has such a specific way of talking and way of expressing herself and the kinds of ideas she comes up with. And then I watched a bunch of pop documentaries to kind of understand what that lifestyle is like, get little details. I don't really want to say the names because it's really not based on a specific person and it's not supposed to reference a particular person, but I definitely got details from different people that I watched, and I mean it's also kind of like obvious which ones exist.
I'm trying not to be too, trying not to get sued here. Yeah. But is there something that interests you about perhaps the dark side of being a performer?
Well, I think that it's always interested me, to see people who kind of are constantly in the public eye, that there is no private life, that like everything private is kind of for consumption, for public consumption, and you see the toll that takes on people, and when the things that are really valuable are given a price tag.
Yeah. Do you mean intentionally? They like, because I would say that you're with all respect very, very famous.
Yeah, but it's a different thing, I think, for actors than for pop stars, because we are selling the fact that we're like characters in different movies that change like movie to movie as actors, whereas as a pop star, you're really selling your persona, which you have to be all the time. Like when you go out to dinner, you have to be like as fabulous as you are when you're on stage as a pop star, as opposed to like, actors regularly kind of like can disappear into their private lives.
Right. You can say, "Hey, I'm not so and so from Black Swan. I'm not so and so from. I'm another person."
And there's certain film actors that kind of go the pop star route that are like kind of like fabulous all the time, like stars all the time. And I think they have kind of the same like challenges that there's just specific challenges to people who put themselves into that public space for like everything.
And it's more and more necessary now than ever,
Yeah.
Or there's more and more of a temptation to put everything you do on Instagram now,
Right, well, there's a market for it, like everything's kind of become a market.
Well, including, I feel like there was an equation here of the attention paid to your character, this pop star, to a school shooting, to a terrorist attack. I wonder if that made you give any considerations for the way our attention as a culture is sometimes divided in 2018.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of Brady's ideas with the structuring of the movie, and is that.
This is Brady. This is
Brady, the director and writer of the movie. That there's a line my character says in it when she's asked, how do you think terrorists and like pop stars are the same? And she says, well, I don't really think they're similar, except that if you stop paying attention to us, we'd cease to exist. That like you make us important by the attention you give us. And that's kind of what news has become. Like news, everything that journalism has become about is like selling stories.
In some cases, for sure.
Yeah, that it's become really important. Like the price tag that you can put, like the number of clicks becomes a dollar number on a story, and so everything becomes like a commodity. Like your news story has a dollar tag on it, and so you can put things at the same value, whether it's like a story of great human suffering or like a story about like a pop star getting into a fight.
You can even tell that from the way the narrator, like Willem Dafoe in the film, when your character's school shooting anthem becomes somehow a nationally renowned success, there's sort of a bite in the way he says it became a hit.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like selling tragedy or turning tragedy into stardom, or, I mean, all of it is disturbing as it is also entertaining.
I found myself, though, wondering who's to blame for Celeste here. Like whether it was Celeste herself for requiring validation in her sickness, whether it was an industry that will prey often on damaged people and exploit their damages and can force us to ignore them so that they can make a buck off of them, or a public that is willing to ignore often really, really sick people for their own entertainment.
I think it's all of those things. I think that's a really accurate depiction, and I think that's something I love about the movie is that it doesn't, and Brady's vision for it is that it's not trying to give any easy answers or like give any answers at all. It's more brings up a lot of questions and a lot of things you can debate and makes you think a lot. And I feel like Truth is more that. It's like a lot of questions more than a lot of answers. It's like a big mystery as opposed to like coming to any sort of conclusions about what it all means.
But you have, I mean, there's that moment really early in the film before you were introduced in the film. I don't think I'm giving away too much here, but there was a point where I was like, did I go to see the wrong, where Celeste is a young performer and she has this moment in the back of a car where I think she realizes, oh my Lord, I'm going to be very, very famous. You've been acting since you were, was it 11 years old? Was there a similar moment? Did you have the self-awareness at the time to go, oh my God, things are going to get real different for me?
I think I definitely wondered what that was going to be like because, of course, I knew that it was possible. Once I got a movie role, I was like, oh, it's possible that things might change. But I mean, it's not the same. Again, like I think being like a film actor is a very different kind of change in lifestyle than being like a pop star. Like I still feel like I can walk down the street without being noticed, kind of thing.
Did you have someone to help you? Did you have someone to guide you? Kurt Cobain famously said in Rolling Stone that I wish there was a class.
Yeah, I don't think that there's like anyone that can guide you, but I think the thing that was lucky that, my family was like very separate from film world and not involved in like the business side of things for me at all, which I think was really nice. And that's something that like Celeste in the movie doesn't have because her family is very intricately involved in her business, which I think makes you not feel like you have anyone that you can really rely on.
Did making this film make you think differently about fame?
Well, it was definitely interesting to see it through this like lens that Brady had put on it, of equating it to like the way violent news stories are covered, putting that on the same level as kind of like pop stardom, that there's kind of a sickness to which we're like, consuming culture and consuming and making violence into entertainment stories, and there's the way it's all mixed up together.
Yeah, and I speak as if I have some kind of omniscient view on it, but I'm just as guilty as anybody else.
Of course.
Any kind of vulgarity from a particular politician, wink, wink.
Yeah.
Is but I say to myself, oh, if you don't pay attention to it, it'll go away. But how can you?
And
not?
it's complicated because like it is important to pay attention to. So it's like, how do you pay attention to it in a way that you are being like a responsible citizen without like exacerbating the problem by like making it more popular? It's definitely like a like catch-22.
It's so nice to talk to you and see you in this film because I was looking forward to having talking to you about the idea of fame and the nature of fame and what it does to our society. But I also love the other sides of you that are in films and on television. We have a set of headphones there. Would you mind just placing them? If you can put them kind of near your ears if you want, or you can put them on if you want.
All right.
So this is in Vox Lux. You sing a lot, but this is not the first time we've heard your musical abilities.
Okay.
You got it there? So Natalie, that was about the only 12 seconds of that we could air on public radio. That's about all we had. That's about all we had to deal with that would keep us from losing our license. What a beautiful other side of you that was. Do you remember how fun that was to do?
It was so fun. Yeah, I love doing both the raps on Saturday Night Live, and I love doing Saturday Night Live in general.
But is it freeing to be kind of crass? Like, is it freeing?
Well, it was definitely fun to kind of play off of like people's perception of me, which I think before that had been like this kind of like straight-laced, like nerdy, boring, like lame person.
Yeah, I feel like people are always trying to figure you out.
I don't know. I think, when you're around for a long time, people kind of label you as certain things, and then it's kind of like, easy to kind of build up on that label.
But it goes back to what we were saying even at the beginning, right? That we ignore the complexities of just being a human at all.
Right.
And we say, oh, Natalie Portman, she's an actor, child star, well, but she went to Harvard, so she must be a...
Right. It's much easier to like have a name for what someone is.
Yeah. Well, it makes us ignore the kind of complexities of ourselves too, right? So you've been in this business now for like over 20 years. You're only in your 30s. You've really accomplished a lot already. I'm wondering, when you're looking for new projects like Vox Lux, I feel like you have a nice selection and things you can look for. I'm wondering what guides your decisions creatively.
Well, it's really rare to get a script like Vox Lux. I mean, this is really like this was a gift to receive, and the writing is so strong and so interesting and thought-provoking and character specific. So it's really rare. I mean, I never see scripts like this. So it really stands out when you get something like this. And I'm just looking for things that I find interesting and challenging. And I know that if something is like really interesting to me, that I want to read everything about it or learn everything about it, or like I can't wait to start saying those words that I read in the script. Sometimes when you're reading, you just start saying it out loud. There's a lot of like joy in that. So yeah, I guess that's what I kind of look for.
And it's funny because that validation needs to come from somewhere within. Like, it can't necessarily come from outside, and I think that's reflected in Vox Lux, because
Thanks.
Your character Celeste talks about how once you've reached a certain level of fame, it almost doesn't matter what you put out there and whether it's good. And I know it's a cynical viewpoint, but she doesn't really seem to care,
Yeah, I think she has kind of like an interesting perspective on it, that she's starting to see the reception of what she does. It doesn't really match necessarily what she thinks the quality of the work is, but I think she has something Brady said that I loved about the character was, he was like, sometimes she says stuff that's really profound, sometimes she says complete nonsense, and it's like all mixed up together.
But does that make you rethink your own relationship with creativity? I know it's a heady.
I mean, I definitely feel that like sometimes what's most fulfilling for me to work on isn't what is popular. Like, sometimes the things that I do that are most popular are not the things that I look on as like my most interesting or successful experiences. And it's good to have that kind of separation, because it's like putting your own values on what is good instead of letting other people define it.
I mean, is that frustrating ever?
No, because I think it just shows, I mean, there's a difference between what is like marketable and what is like an interesting experience. Also, like, sometimes the experience of what you do isn't like equal to the finished product.
Right.
There's also that, like, sometimes you have an amazing experience and then the finished product somehow doesn't like reflect that. So, but the experience is what ends up being valuable to you as a creative person. So it's just nice to kind of feel independent of like the outcomes that you kind of have, because you have no control over the outcomes.
Well, I like how we managed to both avoid naming any pop stars and avoiding any projects in the past that we could categorize the way. Natalie Portman, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks.